Today, I welcome back Yande Nomvete back to the show. So she is the operations manager for Binance Africa. Just a little bit about Yande, if you didn't know. She's at the forefront of driving operational excellence in crypto, fintech, and Web3. In her influential role, she oversees strategy and operations for Binance Africa. Yande, it's a pleasure to have you back on the show. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, although a bit cold in a rainy Cape Town, but I'm excited to be back here chatting to you, Adrian, and I hope you've been keeping well.
It's been amazing. Thank you. I think it's quite interesting because we spoke around April, and when we had this conversation about the weather, you mentioned it was quite chilly. And I told you I couldn't reimagine Africa being chilly, but of course, in that part of Africa, I know it can get cold. So sorry to hear you're in the rain. I'm currently in the sun in Europe, but I should be in Africa in the coming weeks. Apart from that, how are you doing, and what have you been up to?
So we've been really busy at Binance lately. We've just passed the 200 million user mark globally, which is a massive, massive milestone for us. We've also just celebrated our 7-year anniversary at Binance, which is, also just another significant milestone and an incredible feat for, such a cutting edge and innovative company to have been around for 7 years. And I'm sure many of my colleagues would attest that it probably feels like we've been operating for 14 years, so double that. But yeah, doing great, busy as always, and yeah, keen to just drive crypto adoption on the continent.
Fantastic. I'm just want to say congratulations. Those are two huge milestones. Binance running for 7 years and then reaching the whole 200 million users on the platform. I think that's absolutely phenomenal. And I think if it does scream anything, it screams that crypto and blockchain adoption is still on the rise. So, no, really well done to you, the Binance Africa team, and of course the Binance team for making it happen.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Brilliant. And just before we kind of, segue into our main conversation, which is, we're going to be discussing, Ghana's blockchain revolution. What do you feel that has been some of the success to Binance increasing user adoption on their platform?
I think definitely the first thing, which is a key sort of value for us at Binance, is always keeping our users, at the forefront of everything we do. We always put our users first, and we're constantly innovating and building to ensure that we're bringing our users along, the crypto journey, and also innovating as the space innovates as well. I think
Hmm.
as the industry leader, we definitely have a responsibility to innovate responsibly. And I think another thing that, that's quite important to us and has been important to us over the last, few years is really just ensuring that we're scaling in a way that's, compliant, and ensuring that wherever there are opportunities to obtain licenses and registrations, we're doing that while still innovating at the same time. So we've, released a bunch of new products over the last few months, that really aim to, increase, our users' engagement with Binance and ensure that they're getting the most value from the platform, which is really, really cool. Some of them are, things like the Mega Drop, which gives users access to token airdrops if they're holding BNB. And these are usually,
Hmm.
things that have just come out. We have
Hmm.
a BNB holder program as well. So, if you really look at it in context, there are very few other exchanges that are, pushing innovation as much as we are. And I
Yeah.
think that's definitely been the key focus for us over the last few months.
That's brilliant. That's fantastic. There's clearly a lot of innovation that's happening at Binance, just to allow you guys to stay at the forefront of everything crypto and blockchain. You guys are doing a really fantastic job. Okay. I want to keep the conversation going, Yandy. Um, Now, I'm sure after we had our conversation in April, I think a few weeks after that, the vice president of Ghana, Bomia, he mentioned that he wants Ghana to become the first blockchain-powered government in Africa, and I think really that's on the back of the Ghana government website becoming more digital. They're very data robust. It's become very secure, and they've managed to do over 20 billion cities worth of transactions on their government website. Now, I just want to hear from you in terms of your point of view. What's your thoughts on this? And can Ghana really become, you know, the first government in Africa has become blockchain powered, especially on the back of the survey that Binance and Pulse carried out, where they spoke to 20,000 Ghanaians in terms of, their thoughts on crypto adoption and their awareness on crypto and blockchain.
So, I mean, I think this is definitely possible, right? So I've had a few conversations over the last few months just in terms of what are the practical uses or use cases of blockchain and crypto beyond, price speculation? I think there's also the sort of common ones around hedging against volatility of local currency. But I think a lot of the other applications that aren't spoken about as much and that really highlight the security, the transparency, and the safety of the blockchain are things, that do need government adoption, right? So those are things like identity verification, potentially having your title deeds on the blockchain as well. And as much as these ideas are quite idealistic, I mean, for me in South Africa, when I go apply for a new ID card or a passport, there's long lines. It takes quite long. It's not the most efficient process. And we often ideate around what would that look like if that process all happened on the blockchain? It would be so efficient. I mean, if someone is born, they're issued with a identity. When they hit a certain age, they are then, issued an ID card. Through a smart contract, they're then issued a passport, at the age of 18 or whatever the case may be, or whenever they need the passport, right? And these are all great ideas, but these definitely need the buy-in of government, and so it's really encouraging and super exciting to see the Ghanaian government, coming to the fore, stepping up and saying, hey, we're experimenting with this. We want to try this. We want to be the pioneer when it comes to blockchain, because currently I think as much as these ideas exist on the continent, I don't think we've seen any governments really come out to say, this is the goal. This is where we're trying to be. This is where we want to be. And we see the benefits of integrating blockchain, into very traditional systems. So it's possible. I think there's a lot of work being done on the tech side of, just blockchain in general, right? And then you obviously would have your ecosystem players and partners, like Binance, we have our BNB chain, etc., and that enable to build on, different chains and, different blockchains. So, it's incredibly exciting, to hear such statements, from, such a traditional sort of body, and really excited to see how that goes. I think that is the future, and it's formidable that the Ghanaian government is taking a step in that direction.
Yeah, I think that's very, very good commentary right there, Yande. I think everything you said is totally correct. I think, Ghana's laid the foundations to allow themselves to be in this position. I mean, for instance, I think on our last conversations, we mentioned that Ghana's looking to launch the digital city in terms of the government, so they're looking to launch their own CBDCs. I've also heard, Ghana's postal service has issued crypto stamps linked to NFTs to
Yeah.
commemorate significant events. I think everything is kind of being laid down for this to actually happen. And also the Ghana card as well, similar to what you said with being in South Africa, there's a ID card that citizens have. The Ghanaians have the Ghana card, and without the Ghana card, you can't do anything. But with the Ghana card, you can have access to everything. You understand, like driver's license, telecommunications, etc. So I think once you have everything on one system, I think the next step is naturally going to be the blockchain and Web3, and looking to make all of this blockchain is going to make everything really, really easy, and it's going to make it more secure, and it's going to make it more accessible to everyone as well.
Definitely. I mean, when I heard about the NFT stamp that the Ghana Post released, I was, so positively shocked, right? Because you don't really see governments around the globe taking such a bold step in adopting crypto and blockchain. And it seems as though, the Ghanaian government is, really ready to apply this, revolutionary technology into the day-to-day lives of Ghanaians. I mean, if you think about just in terms of bridging the gap between the young and the old, something like, an NFT stamp, which also, carries a lot of history and will be able to be passed down through many generations now that it lives on the blockchain, I think is so, so innovative and, yeah, it's really encouraging to see governments on the continent taking such bold steps that, governments in the West aren't even taking. So
Hmm.
really exciting. We just look forward now to, a regulatory framework coming out of Ghana, which with all of, these advances and really sort of bold statements around blockchain and crypto adoption, we really hope is on the horizon soon.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I think I couldn't have said it any better than the way you phrased it. I think it's going to be a very interesting year with Ghana and the government, and you also have the elections coming up at the end of the year as well. So I think it's going to be very interesting just to see, the kind of policies and the manifestos, sorry, that are going to be, pushed, towards the end of the year. And I'm sure technology is going to be at the forefront at some of these manifestos, and hopefully, it's going to allow some of the public to have a good buy-in to some of those manifestos as well, because I think technology is really going to help Africa in terms of coming out of poverty, and also, coming into a world where I've been able to join the West, where everything's really systemized and accessible. Okay. Okay, I want to keep this conversation going, Yandi. So, right, we've just discussed about how the Ghana blockchain, in terms from a public point of view, I think where the revolution is happening, especially within the government, and how that's going to benefit the general public. I want to kind of take a look into private sectors as well, because not only is the public sector in Ghana getting involved in blockchain, but we also see in the private sector get involved in blockchain as well. So there's various companies out there, various startups out there who have actually used blockchain to their advantage. So for example, I think it was last year or the year before, Cecil Global, which is a real estate company based in Africa. I believe they are also trading in South Africa, but they secure real estate transactions using the blockchain, because in Africa, especially in Ghana, there is a habit of things getting mixed up in paper when it comes to land and property ownership, and things can get really, really messy. So when transactions are done on the blockchain, it's very secure and it's very accessible. And then there's also startups like Blockchain Builders Association. Shout out to Eric Annan from Aya, which is a Web3 company. And he's one of the members on Blockchain Builders Association. And I remember when I was in Ghana, I went to one of the events that they did with one of the blockchain companies out there, Stellar. And they're essentially building this kind of community of blockchain developers to help put Ghana on the map, and to help put Africa on the map out there. So I mean, I want to hear from you. What's your perspectives on more startups building businesses around the blockchain? Is this good news for Ghana? Is this good news for Africa?
I think it's good news for Ghana, and inadvertently then good news for Africa as well, right? So I think this goes back to the identity verification and management example that I mentioned earlier. But uh, Africa can really benefit from having a transparent, publicly available database, which is extremely secure, which is essentially, what the blockchain is, right? So even if you think about, purchasing real estate, like you said, such a messy process, so much paperwork, so many different people involved. And I mean, I think what would be also interesting to see is, as the continent develops and we see potentially also more cross-border purchases of property, for example. I mean, purchasing property already within one jurisdiction is a nightmare. I can only imagine what that looks like to purchase, property in Ghana from South Africa. The amount of lawyers that are involved in that process. It's very costly. It's extremely inefficient and costly time-wise, costly obviously in terms of monetary value as well, and quite inefficient as things stand. And in general, given the lack of general access to some of these concepts, to the ordinary African as it is. So, I'm not sure how many people would have access to a notary, on call to sort of initiate or help them with the property transaction. And so in putting all of concepts, or rather applying the blockchain to some of these concepts, I think it also just would democratize access to certain transactions or sort of, I guess things that people would get involved in, such as purchasing real estate. So I think it's great for the continent. It increases access, it increases inclusion, while at the same time really decreasing the barriers and decreasing cost as well. I think we are also all aware, just how messy paperwork can be in terms of, having it stored securely in a way that doesn't get lost, etc. And the blockchain really does solve for, those types of issues. So it's great news. It's great to see builders on the continent building and using blockchain. I always say that Africa is very, very fertile for blockchain and crypto adoption, so it's great to see builders that are building. And I just hope that, we eventually see adoption of all of this amazing tech that's coming out of the continent, because we really are, I think, as Africans, pushing the boundaries when it comes to what the world could look like and potentially will look like. And blockchain is definitely just one of the tools that can be used to improve the lives of Africans. But also then, hopefully we'll scale all of these innovations globally, and really become pioneers when it comes to the space, because I think that we are in the unique position to do so. I think for so long, Africa has been, the last to a lot of tech and innovation. When it comes to blockchain, because there are so many practical use cases, we can be pioneers and really drive, what adoption looks like and what practicality looks like, apart from, the price of Bitcoin or the price of whatever meme coin, or when am I going to buy my Lambo. Really great work that's happening on the continent that Africans are, pioneering without a shadow of a doubt.
Excellent, Yandi. And I think that's a key word right there, pioneering. I mean, I think I had a conversation with, I believe it was Eric Annan from Aya, the Web3 company owner. And he mentioned, I think in our conversation that, in Web2, in the world of, apps and websites, etc., you see people like the Indians, etc., dominating that sector. So he was saying, well, Web3, why can't Africans dominate that sector? Because we're in a very unique position where there's so many use cases on the continent that blockchain can be used for, as I learned in the Stellar, community meetup in February in Accra. And, we have, the youngest continent on the planet, where there's a lot of talent who have the time and have the willingness to be able to learn these skills and have the ability to be able to develop some of these products to be able to solve problems on the continent. And I think, just as you said, Africa is fertile ground because there's so many problems that can be solved and need to be solved on the continent. And I think the blockchain is the perfect way to do that.
Definitely. I mean, if you, and Africa has done it before, right? So if you look at like just the level of penetration of mobile money in Ghana and Kenya, Africa's definitely pioneered what mobile money looks like, and it's become part of, the everyday. If you compare it to, sort of other countries like the US or potentially, countries in Europe, for example, that have payment systems that work, yes. But if you think about it objectively, mobile money is probably the most efficient way to carry out payments. And because there was a problem that needed to be solved in Africa at the time, the innovation that happened on the continent was able to surpass, a lot of what we see in other countries. So I think it's the same with blockchain. And it's, having podcasts like this and having conversation like this also just affirms that there is a genuine investment and interest, to integrate blockchain into our everyday lives. Will it happen today? Will it all happen today? Probably not. But to have these types of conversations, amongst young people, old people as well, is super important. And I think we'll definitely be at the forefront of driving blockchain and crypto adoption globally, for sure.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And I want to ask regarding Binance, right? Are there any initiatives or anything Binance is currently doing to support blockchain adoption on the continent? I know with crypto adoption, there's a lot that Binance is doing, and of course, we are going to talk about the survey that Binance and Pulse Ghana did in shortly. But just out of curiosity, just want to learn from you and from your perspective, Yande. Is there anything that Binance Africa is looking to do in terms of increasing blockchain adoption and blockchain, building out these use cases on the continent?
Yeah, so I mean, we really tried to maintain a presence, in pretty much every African country, where we can. I think that's number one. I think you'll be hard pressed to find a global crypto exchange that has as deep of a presence in most African countries than what Binance does. And then another thing that we focus on a lot is we generally have, some events that will pop up in certain countries where members of our team will go out and meet the community on the ground, which is also super important. It's, as we sort of build and grow, it's important that we're building and growing alongside our communities in the respective countries. So that's also important. And then in general, we're always really looking to integrate new offerings to our users based on the feedback that they give us. So I think all in all, what I'm trying to say is that Binance acts as like an ecosystem partner and support along various parts of the journey that our African users are, whether they are entry level users, just trying to buy a bit of Bitcoin, or, all the way to your builders who are building out the tech. We have BNB chain, which I mentioned, which is where developers can build their own decentralized apps. So yeah, we're just really acting as an ecosystem partner, throughout the different journeys and stages of our users' stages in their crypto adoption. And we're always a resource, that's available online. So we have the Binance Academy, which I spoke about, I think the last time we had a chat. And then offline as well, we really do try, at least once a quarter to pop up in key African markets, just to show people that we are present, and answer any questions that the community might have.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant, and it's great to hear that Binance is this active in the crypto and blockchain community in Africa, and there's no doubt about it that Binance does play their part in terms of raising awareness and education and providing resource and support in all these areas. I think I may have mentioned to you that there's a number of events that I've been to, technology events, where I see Binance, from Lisbon or web summits, to maybe a smaller tech event. Binance really does play their part in terms of getting awareness and providing support and knowledge in when it comes to the blockchain and crypto, for sure. I think this is a great segue in order to move to our next part of the conversation, Yande. So I think you're aware of the survey that you made a contribution to. So regarding the 20,000 Ghanaians that were interviewed regarding crypto adoption. Now, I think you made a few interesting comments regarding the back of that survey, and it's really brilliant to see the number of Ghanaians that are involved in crypto and blockchain. From your perspective, I think the survey that I'm talking about. What is your perspective on what, in terms of those results? When you saw those results come back, from those 20,000 Ghanaians that were interviewed.
Yeah, so it was super interesting to see, the responses, and just I think off the bat of, the first sort of key takeaway is that there is sort of at least amongst the respondents, a really good, like foundation of understanding, crypto, and like, I think like just the very sort of obvious do's and don'ts. But I think what was also interesting is that, more than 70% of the respondents believe that crypto can positively impact financial inclusion in Africa by fostering innovation. And that was also super interesting to me, because we speak about all of these things, right? And I think in my day to day, we really do want to build out these solutions, and we build with the sort of motivation, or I guess, yeah, what motivates us is basically fostering innovation. So seeing those responses come in from the community, which we built for, was super, super interesting and really affirming. And then also, if you just go back to just basic sort of security practices. So, people understood that they shouldn't share their private keys with, friends and family. Um, Also, sort of identifying the importance of anti-money laundering practices and mitigating fraud, and the value of doing extensive research into reputable cryptocurrency exchanges, before handing over your funds. So it really showed me that there is a really good foundation when it comes to the understanding that people have of crypto. Obviously, there's always more that we can do. So, I mean, I think a lot of these, we had like about 60% of, the respondents understanding, which means there's like still another 40% of those that need to be carried along, which is definitely, part of what is our key sort of driver and, key motivation for having presence on the continent, is ensuring that everyone is educated about crypto and understands it to the best of their ability. And in general, I'd say, yeah, it was like positively taken aback by the solid level of understanding from the respondents.
Yeah, it was absolutely phenomenal. And I think the amount of Ghanaians that have a smartphone and are very savvy
Mm,
with it, it's a very, very good number, considering that, of course, Ghana is a third world country. And, you'll be surprised the amount of Ghanaians that have a smartphone, and, how well acquainted they are with the smartphones, and more so how acquainted they are with crypto platforms. I mean, it's
mm,
absolutely brilliant. Um, I think what's quite interesting here is that I think almost every person, every Ghanaian is very acquainted with mobile money, as we mentioned earlier on in the conversation. Do you see us entering into a world, Yandi, where the blockchain would essentially replace mobile money? And, we can build a lot of useful applications on top of it. It'll be more than just maybe mobile money transfer. It could be transferring land deeds and things like that. Do you see a world where the blockchain in Ghana could essentially replace mobile money as we all know and love?
mm. I mean, I don't think it would replace mobile money. I think what's going to be really interesting over the next, few years is how like telcos and blockchain infrastructure providers such as Binance, or, I think you mentioned, some crypto startups or blockchain startups as well, how
Yes.
they collaborate to, make transacting more efficient on the continent. I think that's a type of conversation, and like that's a type of future we need to sort of start envisioning, is how can these two worlds come together. I don't, like, at least in my view, like I don't think it's like a either or conversation. I think it's like how do we use both to the best of our ability to ensure that, transacting, or just the everyday life, for the average Ghanaian is efficient. I mean, I think about, in general, one of the key aspects of mobile money that I think is still being solved is cross-border transactions, right? Whereas, I mean, with crypto, that's super easy. I mean, on Binance, you could just have two Binance users and transact on Binance Pay, which literally takes less than a second. The blockchain actually isn't even involved in that transaction,
Yeah.
which is like super, super cool. I could transfer any crypto that I'd like to someone who may be sitting in the China, or Europe, or wherever the case may be. And when you think about small business owners who might need raw materials imported, etc., then that what crypto does for them is like revolutionary. Like, it decreases the cost of their transactions, it opens them up to the whole world essentially in terms of transacting. And I think this is where maybe where blockchain could help mobile money optimize their current offering. And I think it would just take like collaboration between these different infrastructure providers and ecosystem partners. I don't think we have to replace each other. I think
Mhm.
there's really like this opportunity to work together. But again, I think, we need a lot of sort of regulatory clarity to really see these types of like innovations and partnerships take off. I think both sides need to be comfortable in collaborating with each other, which would then always only be to the benefit of, the Ghanaian on the streets, or like the, everyday person. So yeah, I think it's more about collaboration versus replacing, in my view.
Fantastic. Yeah, I think that is the key word, collaboration. In this conversation, we've discussed what the public sector is working on in regards to blockchain. And we've also discussed and explored what the private sector is working on in terms of the blockchain. And I think, it will be very powerful if those two sectors collaborated with each other and
Mm.
also, and also within the private sector and also within the public sector. I think if they collaborate, externally and internally, I think it will create some very fantastic, powerful results, and not just for the country, but also I think for the benefit of Africa as well. Because I think once something is built for Ghana, why can't it be replicated and shared across the whole continent that is Africa? And I think that's the main goal here, just trying to, make Africa, a much better place and to leverage blockchain on that.
Exactly.
And certainly, yeah. So this has been a fantastic conversation, Yandi. I just want to ask if you have any final thoughts in regards to Ghana and the blockchain. I mean, I think in the survey that we also discussed, I think Ghana has climbed up the ranking in terms of blockchain and crypto adoption. What do you see? Where do you see Ghana going in terms of, in terms of the ranking wise, in terms of crypto and blockchain? Did you see Ghana continuing to climb, those rankings if they continue to do what we've discussed in today's conversation, or do you feel like, they may not necessarily move up the rankings, but they may just stay where they are because of what they're doing?
I think there's a high potential for cryptocurrency adoption to increase in Ghana significantly. I think right now, Ghana stands ninth amongst 26 other countries in terms of adopting cryptocurrency, with 17% of adults earning crypto in Ghana. And this is according to the Cryptocurrency Adoption Index. And if you think about that level of adoption that's happened up until now, I guess, that mostly has been due to like individuals' free will, right? So they've maybe become curious about crypto, or they've heard about it somewhere, or they needed it to transact across borders, or maybe they're trying to hedge against inflation. And this has all been out of their own free will. And now, as we mentioned before, we have, the Ghanaian government, solidifying their presence as it pertains to this new technology and as it pertains to crypto. And I think in general, when it comes to driving adoption, you really do need those two sides working together. So individuals that are your early adopters, keen to learn and getting involved without any real need. And then what it seems, to be happening, or what seems to be sort of the next step in Ghana's journey as it pertains to blockchain and crypto, is now your traditional, organizations, governments getting involved, which will then also drive a certain amount, like rather a huge level of adoption, in my view. And when you have, such already a robust amount of just early adopters, and the government then saying, we want to sort of be the first blockchain government in Africa, that's significant. And so we can only expect, I think, cryptocurrency adoption in Ghana to increase, and to increase significantly over the next few months and years. And I, for one, am super keen to see what that looks like, and see the benefits of that. Also, will be interesting to take learnings from it, right? So like, not everything that we experiment with will go well, but if there's learnings to be shared across the continent, then other countries can also try and replicate that model together with the learning. So I think that cryptocurrency adoption in Ghana is going to skyrocket, all things being equal. And we'll just have to see how things go post-election, and how serious the government is about integrating blockchain into their ways of working.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. All of those points you made. Thank you for those contributions, Yandi. It is going to be a very interesting end to the year, and it's going to be very interesting to see what happens, during elections, which takes place in December 2024 in Ghana. We're already halfway through the year in July 2024. And I think all of this news is going to make, a very interesting end to the election, and a very interesting 2025 for sure. Yandi, you've been fantastic once again. Thank you again for coming on the show. Please share the audience where anyone can connect with you and where they can learn more about Binance and Binance Africa. And also, if you have any final thoughts or announcements, please feel free to make those as well.
Yeah, so if people want to connect with me, they can connect with me on LinkedIn at Yande Nomvete. And then in terms of Binance Africa, so you can find us across pretty much all social platforms at the Binance Africa handle. So that is X, previously known as Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. And then, yeah, if you're a Binance user, just keep your eyes peeled for any comms that come out from us and the team. We may or may not be popping up in Ghana soon for an event. And we have some exciting new product features for the Ghanaian community coming up as well, which I'm super excited about. So keep your eyes peeled on all our socials for those updates. And last words is just keep building, keep pushing, the envelope in terms of innovation. Conversations like these are important. Platforms like these are important. And yeah, let's just keep building.
Certainly. Wow, thank you so much, Yande. Those are really fantastic final thoughts. So I'll make sure everything is in the podcast description below in terms of all of the links where you guys can connect with Yande and Binance Africa. And that's all for this conversation. And we'll catch you guys in the next episode. Thank you so much for listening. Take care.